Hello and welcome. My name is Zafar Iqbal and you are watching The Mojo Story. Ajit Pawar, NCP chief and Maharashtra's deputy chief minister, has died in a plane crash. Now, that small aircraft was flying from Mumbai to Baramati. Four others, including pilots and the security personnel, the personal security officers of the deputy chief minister, have also died in that crash. Now, this was a small aircraft that had taken off from Mumbai. It had taken off around 8:10 a.m. and the crash had happened around 8:45 a.m. near the Baramati airport. Now, it was attempting to land when the crash happened. Now, there are reports that Pawar was on his way to attend a public meeting meant for their local body polls next month, and it was in connection with that. Now you can see those visuals from the spot. That's the place where the crash has happened. People near that crash spot, that's the mangled uh, aircraft. It shows fire and smoke, mangled remains of the plane, and there are lots of people. There are also ambulances that rush the injured to the hospital. The Director General of the Civil Aviation has said that all five passengers on board have died in the crash. Now, the 66-year-old Pawar, the nephew of veteran politician NCP founder Sharad Pawar, uh, and is also the cousin of Lok Sabha MP Supriya Sule. To get a sense of what exactly happened, these are small aircraft. Generally, we see politicians using them during election rallies. They go on those small aircrafts and also those choppers. We are today joined by an eminent panel. Let's introduce our guests. We joined by Captain Sharat Panikar. We're also joined by Group Captain Augustine Vinod. If I may start with you, Captain Sharat Panikar, we're told that it was a Learjet 45 aircraft operated by VSR. What we understand that these are small aircraft that are generally used by politicians during election rallies, and they land at odd places. These rallies happen sometimes in big fields, open areas, and that's they land. Sometimes those choppers land in those open areas. Sometimes those aircrafts land in places nearby. What is the sense that you get after you see these visuals of that crash that's happened today in the morning?
Okay, Zafar, good evening to you and good evening to all our guests and to Vinod. First and foremost, a jet like this would require a proper runway. It cannot land in a prepared airfield or a kacha airfield. It requires a proper runway. The sense that I've got is that the aircraft was attempting to land, and from what I understand, in visibility that was slightly poor. And I do not have the facts as to what the actual visibility was at that point in time.
Yeah.
But this type of an aircraft would be requiring a runway, and Baramati has an adequate runway that is available. The details of the crash, once further details are available, only then would we have a better idea of what has actually happened. But just to keep the picture clear, this is a normal small jet. It's a twin, and the capacity is not much, just a handful of passengers it can carry. And the range is adequate, everything is good. As to what has actually happened, once the preliminary report comes out, we should be in a better picture to find out. But just to put the facts straight, this is a small jet and it would require a proper runway to land. It cannot land on an unprepared surface or a small field or anything like that. From the
Right.
visuals that are available at this point in time, it seems to have crashed short of the runway. I'm not
Yeah.
really sure where. I cannot really make out at this point in time.
It's actually crashed near the Baramati airport, Group Captain Augustine. Perhaps it was trying to approach that airport for landing, and just before it could reach there, it has just crashed. What is the sense you make when you see those visuals? That mangled small aircraft and people around it. These are very scary visuals, and this is not the first time we've seen such visuals. We've seen them in the past as well.
Zafar bhai, good morning to you, but not a very good morning for Maharashtra and people of Maharashtra for two reasons. Ajit Pawar, Dada, Ajit Dada, as we used to call him, was very popular leader in Maharashtra, especially amongst the youth. And my mom comes from this region, and I mean, met him many times. He is very, very, jovial kind of person. So which is the reason why even the down to Gen Z they like him.
Yeah.
So it is a great loss for the state, and it is great upheaval in Maharashtra politics to say the least.
Yeah.
Remerger of NCP or whatever
Yeah.
happens, it
Yeah.
is not going to be easy path for Maharashtrians in a couple of weeks down the road. That said, coming to technical aspect of this, um, I was hearing in Marathi, of course, which is my mother tongue. I was hearing someone talking in Maharashtra in a Marathi channel, of Eyewitness, stating that he has seen the aeroplane, trying to make an approach and not able to land and coming back again, and then this time he saw a ball of fire even before it hit the ground, and which is a very significant information
Hmm.
for me if that for the account of the eyewitness is accurate. So that is the caveat here, because eyewitnesses accounts
Hmm.
may or may not be accurate, and more often than not, we've seen it, the range is about to 50-50. So, assuming that his account was correct, and I've been to Baramati many times. In fact, I wanted to put my daughter in the flying school, which is there in Baramati. So, towards that also, I've been there recently. During COVID times, I've been there. So, Baramati, though, is not a tabletop runway. It is the runway on one approach direction. The runway is on a slight elevated portion, and the crash, as we can see on the screen, apparently has happened just short of the runway, and where people are standing behind that is from 100 meters or so behind that is where the runway is starting. So the crash has happened just short of the runway. It is just sort of undershot the runway, and if the account is assumed to be accurate, then an engine trouble is cannot be ruled out, because that is the only place where the fire is in an aeroplane. There is nowhere else there is a fire unless there is an electrical fire, in which case you don't see a ball of fire. That said, Learjet 45, especially this XR, and it was piloted by a very senior captain and a very senior first officer. I believe the captain was one of the management pilot or one of the co-owners or something of VSR, and VSR has enjoyed a very good safety record till date, and very well-known charter aeroplane company based out of Delhi. In fact, many politicians like to travel in VSR because of the timely service that they provide and also onboard service that they provide. So VSR has enjoyed a very good relationship amongst the politicians, and therefore most preferred. And this particular aeroplane, Learjet 45 XR, has had very few accidents, Zafar bhai, very few. I mean, as I can see, uh, it may have crashed about 3 to 4 times in its entire career, and it's had a very wonderful career. Cruises at 51,000 feet, much above many airliners cruise. Goes at very high speeds, 0.81, 0.82 mark, close to where Boeing and the big jets that Sarat sir used to fly, cruises at that kind of Mach number. It cruises and travels 3,500 to 4,000 kilometers. So it travels high, travels fast, and travels far. So as good as any airliner, but with albeit with a less number of passengers. In this case, was 8. So uh, the aeroplane per se has had very good safety record. So what remains to be seen is what the inquiry throws out, and the complete inquiry, as you know, will take few months and maybe years, a year and a half to come out. But preliminary report, just because there was very important person on board, may take maybe a week or 10 days, depending on the so-called black box or the FDR is recovered and we get some data out of it. And also the on account of the personal eyewitnesses. statements. All that put together, maybe in a week or 10 days, we should get a preliminary report pointing us towards a particular direction. And that direction, in my opinion, could be an engine trouble. And if you look at the engine, Zafarbai, it's very close to the fuselage and very close to the tail. So could the engine trouble have created any control malfunction is a question mark that I have in my mind. Only, again, the preliminary report will tell us. But possibilities is where what we are discussing here. So that is where, at the moment, I am tending to lean to is engine trouble leading to control malfunction, or just an engine trouble and not enough power to reach the runway. Zafarbai.
Extremely significant details, those. So, what you're telling us that according to an eyewitness account, it had already converted into a ball of fire before hitting the ground. So, it didn't actually catch fire or it didn't burst after hitting the ground. It was already in the air when there must have been some engine trouble or something must have happened that the aircraft caught fire, and then it just came down on the ground there, right?
That is what the Marathi news channel Eyewitness was saying, and that is what I understood.
And it's a
Yes.
matter of investigation now. And it is saying that it will take some time. There is a set protocol for the investigation. There is a preliminary report, and then proper investigation will be done. But this aircraft has a good track record.
And the company also had a good track record, VSR. Very good track record.
And there's a difference, Panika sir. If you can come in, sometimes we cover these election rallies. There are choppers which are used by these politicians, and they land very close to the spot where lots of people have assembled, and they will have to address them. But this was not a chopper. This was a fixed wing aircraft. This was not a chopper. But these things we see such aircraft, such choppers used by the politicians during election rally. It's very easy to reach to these spots which are far flung, sometimes in open areas where people are sitting. But here in this case, it, as you were saying, it had to reach an airport, a proper runway, and then only the people could come out and go to the rally spot. It was not like that chopper which could just land in an open area.
Okay, I'll just like to clarify it. A certain protocol is always followed before a temporary helipad. Like what you're referring to, Zafar, is a temporary helipad. That means it's not a pakka helipad which is concretized and which is marked, and it's been routinely used by the non-scheduled operators or the scheduled operators. The ones that you're referring to in a rally for a helicopter primarily is a sort of a prepared ground which is reasonably flat, and some sort of a survey is carried out to see if the approach to that particular area or to that proposed helipad, the approach is clear. It's not that a helicopter is just vertical and comes and sits down straight away. It needs a sort of an approach funnel in which it is gradually losing altitude. Yes, the angle at which it comes down onto the helipad is much higher than that of a fixed wing. Like a fixed wing typically comes in at about 3 degrees. A helicopter may come in at 6 degrees or 8 degrees or more. But it's only in the final stages in which the landing is nearly vertical. So to come back to election rallies and the use of helicopters, what is usually done is that there is a certain amount of a ground which is identified, which is clear of obstacles, which is reasonably flat. And that particular area is cordoned off, and it is assessed as to whether the helicopter can come, whether there is any obstacles in its path, etc., etc. So now we have seen in the recent past in which you had wrong selection of these helipads. There may have been obstacles, there may have been power cables, there have been electric lines, there have been high trees around, and the general area around sometimes tends to be very dusty, and the visibility is really poor when the rotor blades of the helicopter come a little lower down. They come into ground effect, and it kicks up a lot of dust that blurs the judgment of the pilots as to what is the elevation above their landing zone that they actually are at. So there have been cases in which the helicopter has not been able to make a smooth landing. It's either made a hard landing, or it's tilted, or the rotors have struck the ground, or cases like this. I do remember that when we used to go as helipad officers when I was in the Air Force, We had to go and identify the correct zones, identify the approach funnels, assess as to what the obstructions were, and sometimes we would take, in case uh, the aircraft was big enough or significant enough, we would even take a helicopter pilot with us to give us further inputs as to what are the restrictions that were. Do remember that both Vinod and I flew fighters in the Air Force, but we've been helipad officers on many occasions. So that was the procedure and the protocol that we used to follow in the Air Force. And I would imagine that something similar would be done in civil aviation as far as the civil aviation helicopters are concerned. But like I had pointed out earlier, a Learjet 45 is basically a jet. It requires a hard runway to land. So there is no question of it trying to attempt a landing on a ground or on a field or anything of that sort. Clearly, the fact that it has come down on a field means that it was, from what I understand, well short of the runway. And from the inputs that Vinod is given as far as the eyewitness is concerned, possibly they had some engine trouble or a fire, possibly before the aircraft has crashed. And once you have a fire on board, there is any number of things that can happen. It could affect your control systems. It could affect your fuel tanks. It could affect, any other number of the hydraulic systems and other systems on board. So it is impossible to predict as to exactly what would happen. But the normal protocol that is followed by everybody in the case of a fire in the air is to first try and extinguish it with the onboard fire extinguishing bottles that we have. All aircraft would have, some sort of an agent or something to suppress the fire. And the aircraft, if that engine has caught fire, the usual protocol is to secure that engine. That is to switch off the fuel supply to that engine so that the fire on its own tends to go out. But in case it doesn't and the fire is caught on to the structure, or if there's enough residual fuel which lends itself to being self-sustained, that becomes more of a problem. In any case, the protocol would also demand that you try and put her down at the earliest. And in this case, whether the pilot was attempting to put it down wherever he could at the earliest is not known. What has happened, when it's happened, only the preliminary investigation will be able to point out as to what has happened, and once the black box has been recovered.
Right. Group Captain Augustine, we're talking about procedures that are already laid out, because it it's always there that there are rules and regulations. We know for big aircrafts, for flights that go from one place to another carrying passengers, but particularly for these small aircrafts, for these choppers that are mostly used during election rallies and all of that, are there procedures also laid out for them? Because as sir was pointing out, there has to be a pakka runway. There have to be system that where the pilots can land. As I was saying, there is an inclination that these choppers, these aircrafts, should land very close to the places where these rallies are taking place during elections and all of that time. What are the rules? What are the procedures that are laid out?
Um, you know, for the sake of viewers, I'm covering this. What they need to understand, um, how operations are carried out, especially in a fixed wing aeroplane.
Yeah,
For for any flight operations in India or any other place,
yeah,
you have the DGCA lays down certain regulations and rules by the
yeah,
way of Government of India lays down certain rules and regulations by the way of laws, rules, followed by something called CAR. So these become the backbone for you to make your own something called operations manual.
yeah,
So every operator needs to have their own operations manual, which every operator makes it. So every operator makes their operations manual, and you are bound. That operations manual is ratified by the regulator. In our case, the DGCA. So it goes to the DGCA. It is ratified by the DGCA, and DGCA does not ratify it like that. They go through the every procedures laid down in the operations manual, and what chapters of operations manual should cover what is also laid out by not only by DGCA in consonance with the International Civil Aviation Organization, using something called the IATA codes.
Yeah.
So chapter 17 has to be something, chapter 11 has to be what, chapter 10 has to be what, is all laid out. It is so
Yeah.
well oiled that you can't even imagine. It is so beautifully done. So we are pilots are bound by majorly four documents. One is the flight crew operating manual, which the OEM gives us.
Mm.
We are bound by that. We are bound by the CAR. We are bound by the aircraft rules and law of the land, as well as by the company in which you are flying, the operations manual of the company, which also lays down the SOP. So, which is why I said, so VSR has had very good safety record till date, which means their operational procedures and how the operational procedures is implemented on the ground, whether for pilots are following it or not, the flight safety organization checks it. All that has to be in place for a company to enjoy a very good safety record, which means that in this case, VSR has hasn't faltered, which is why it has had a very good safety record and preferred by many politicians. If you look at VSR, Muzaffarbai, it is preferred charter company by many politicians. They are completely overbooked in many cases, and especially during elections. So no question on that. Very senior pilot flying it. But if there is a, a malfunction, there is a malfunction. It is, after all, a machine. Thousands and
Yeah.
thousands of parts are rotating, are coming together to give you that adequate trust and adequate safety for
Right.
you to go from A to B. And humans are not, mind you, designed to go in air. We are a terra firma people. We are not
Right.
birds. So we are
Right.
trying to fly like one. We will. It is good. I mean, accidents are part of air travel. But
Yeah.
air travel, mind you, is one of the safest modes of travel in all modes of travel. In fact, walking is the worst, and especially
Mm.
walking on Indian roads is the worst.
Mm.
You can get hit and die anytime on walking
Mm.
on the road. The second is motorcycle. So air travel is one of the very more safe modes of travel. Yes, accidents happen, and we have recently lost, you know, the ex-chief minister in that Dreamliner crash. Over 10 politicians I can count on my fingertips
Yeah.
who lost their lives in
Yes.
last decade or so in air crashes, which is the
Yes.
reason some senior seasoned politicians today, they travel by bigger aeroplane like Air India, Indigo, or SpiceJet or something like that. And the last mile they connect using road, because they know flying in helicopters or flying in chartered aeroplane is has taken politicians down. And especially politicians today are avoiding helicopters as much as they can because of this reason. Rashik Reddy, if you remember, we couldn't find his body. In fact, the
Yeah.
Indian Air Force used the synthetic aperture radar on a Sukhoi 30 to scan the area and find the crash site.
Yeah.
So it's not very a rosy picture when it comes to
Yeah.
especially
Our
the election season,
yeah.
pressure, all that put together. Zafarbai, over to you.
You can see on the screen, our producer is putting up those photos. Sanjay Gandhi, uh, son of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, died in a small aircraft crash while flying in Delhi on the 23rd of June 1980. Madhurav Scindia, senior Congress leader, uh, was was killed when a private plane he was traveling crashed near Manipuri, Uttar Pradesh on 30th September 2001. GMC Balayogi Lok Sabha Speaker and Telugu Desam Party leader died in a helicopter crash on 3rd March 2002 in Andhra Pradesh. Y.S. Rajashekar Reddy, then Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, was killed when the helicopter he was traveling in crashed in the Nalam La Forest on the 2nd of September 2009. The list, it's a long list. Surinder Nath, Governor of Punjab and Himachal Pradesh, additional charge, died in a plane crash in Himachal Pradesh on 9th July 1994. So the list goes on and on. Obviously, this very sort of aircraft has a good track record. But if we look back, as you were saying, it's a machinery. It can falter anytime. There can be a fault and there can be a snag, and that could lead to a crash. So it's been happening, and now politicians are avoiding, these small uh, aircrafts and choppers. But then those are the compulsions of a political life, and there are elections around the corner, and they have to go to these places to attend those rallies. In the meantime, now, there are condolence messages that are coming in. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has described Pawar's untimely death as shocking and saddening. Uh, there are also messages coming in from Union Home Minister Amit Shah, Nitin Gadkari, and all the leaders. Remember, it's the first day of the Parliament session. In fact, we can play the sound bite of Nitin Gadkari. He's also put out a condolence message. Let's have that up before we can discuss it further.
अजीत पवार का ये एक्सीडेंट में निधन होना ये बहुत ही दुखद और दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है। पिछले 40 साल से महाराष्ट्र के राजनीति में मेरे बहुत घनिष्ठ मित्र रहे, उनके मेरे पारिवारिक संबंध रहे। बहुत कर्मठ, अच्छा प्रशासक और विकास की दृष्टि रखने वाले ऐसे वो नेता थे। उनके जाने से बहुत बड़ा नुकसान हुआ है। उनके परिवार को भी काफ़ी उनके ऊपर भी एक बड़ा हादसा हुआ है। मुझे लगता है कि भगवान उनको ये जो घटना हुई है इसका दुख सहन करने की ताकत दे। मैं व्यक्तिगत रूप से और पार्टी के तरफ से महाराष्ट्र के इस पुराने सहयोगियों को मैं श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित करता हूँ। भगवान उनके आत्मा को शांति दे, यही ईश्वर चरणों में प्रार्थना करता हूँ। नमस्कार।
Right. That was Nitin Gadkari, Union Minister. Now, Ajit Pawar served as the Deputy Chief Minister under 4 Chief Ministers: Prithviraj Chauhan, Uddhav Thackeray, Eknath Shinde, and Devendra Fadnavis. In 2023, Ajit Pawar led the mutiny in NCP that split the party into 2 factions. One was led by him and the other by Sharad Pawar, his uncle. So it's a big loss for Maharashtra politics and for the politics of the country. But Panikar sir, if I may come back to you, this has brought back the focus on the air travel. We covered that Air India crash a few months ago. That was an entirely different situation. It was a passenger a plane full of passengers on way to London. But here we're dealing with an entirely different situation. I have had the opportunity to travel with these politicians in these small choppers and fixed wing, aircrafts in the past when they used to go to election rallies, and we used to go with them to cover them. But they are very scary. Even when you are normally sitting in those small aircraft, they're very scary. It looks very scary. Though they are used to it, but from a person who's an outsider, and when you are with a politician on these small flights, it looks very scary from the top.
As far as these aircraft themselves are concerned, like just to give you a little bit of a background, when I was in the DGCA and I was an FOI, flight operations inspector, I was looking after 8 of these non-scheduled operators from the Mumbai region, and some of them have a few aircraft, some of them have 1 aircraft, some of them have multiple aircraft. But it was the responsibility of the regulator, that is the DGCA, to have oversight over the safe conduct of operations over all these operators. All these operators, the safety aspect of it is being looked into by DGCA on a regular basis. The airworthiness of each of these aircraft is being looked after, and the pilots are checked out at regular intervals, and their documentation, their licensing, their qualifications, the maintenance, everything is being looked after in a systematic manner. Now, Air travel, like I mentioned earlier, even during the Dreamliner crash, air travel is inherently safe. It is the safest form of travel that we have so far. But these incidents and accidents do happen because at the end of the day, it is still flying is still an unnatural form for us. And as long as the safety protocols are being followed, the maintenance practices are being followed correctly, everything is being done as per the standard operating procedures, there is no reason why air travel cannot be more safe. So, during these election rallies, like you correctly pointed out, both the helicopters as well as the fixed wing crew, they tend to be overworked. They tend to be hopping from one place to the other, depending upon the compulsions of the person that has chartered the aircraft. In this case, probably a political party. But I have heard of many cases in which, when the visibility is poor or it is beyond the limitations of that particular helicopter or fixed wing, the pilots have put their foot down and said, "Sir, we cannot land because of so and so reason. We cannot take off because of so and so reason." So I'm not sure as to what was the exact conditions of the meteorological conditions, but this is the time of the year in which there is no thunderstorm activity in that area. It's only the visibility that's likely to be a little on the lesser side. But obviously, the visibility must have been within the parameters or the capability of the crew. Otherwise, they would not have taken off in the first place. And the other aspect to it is what was brought out earlier, that possibly there was a fire. Now, whether the fire has happened on impact or whether it has happened before the impact is a moot question. And somebody, like I think Vinod had pointed out, that there were some eyewitnesses report saying that the aircraft was on fire. Now, again, we have to take this with a pinch of salt unless we can see a video to that effect that the aircraft is actually on fire before impact. Because usually what happens is that post impact, in 99% of the cases, there will be fire because your fuel is trapped within the wings and there is already a hot source that is available, namely the engines, which are extremely hot, and in this case, a jet engine. So the parameters that dictate a fire or an explosion are already available. But whether whether the fire happened before or after, in my opinion, it is more likely to be after. And maybe the eyewitness has seen the fire and then assume that the aircraft was already on fire, not post impact.
Yeah.
So SOPs have to be followed. It's not that these aircraft are unsafe. It's not that the helicopters are unsafe. Practices are being followed. What my fear only is, if people put pressure upon the pilots to exceed what are the laid down SOPs, what are the laid down limitations, just by the sheer force of will. Again, it is up to the pilots to stand up and say that this is beyond the capability of the aircraft, or this is beyond my licensing capability. I cannot land in this particular visibility, or I cannot take off in this particular visibility, or this weather in this particular airfield is not suitable for us to land. We will have to divert somewhere else. It does not matter if your rally is out here, but I cannot take a chance and land out here because that's not safe. So everybody knows what their limitations are. Everybody knows what the limitations of their licenses are. So in almost all the cases, I would imagine that pilots are strong enough to stand up and say that this is beyond parameters. But in this particular instance, I don't think visibility would have would have been a factor. And even though Baramati may not have all the navigational facilities that are available in major airports, it still would have been adequate for the aircraft to land.
I can see Sanjay Lazar also joining us. But before we go to him, Group Captain Augustine, I wanted to understand now that this crash has happened, the wreckage, you can see there are a lot of people there. What is the SOP that is generally used? I believe that experts will visit the spot and they will collect the samples and the materials, and then the investigation will follow. What exactly happens after the crash? Now that the crash has happened, the wreckage is on the ground, the the normal, generally it's the people who live in the surrounding areas, they come closer to the site. There are security agencies also, ambulances are also trying to move any injured or any people who are in a bad condition towards the hospitals. What exactly happens afterwards?
So it starts with, first of all, there's something called preliminary inquiry, which happens before a court of inquiry is brought together and a president is nominated. So that takes time. So initially, the AIB reaches the spot to get their hands on um, all the evidences that is available, and that area is cordoned off. More often than not, by the time, I mean, I'm part of DGCA AIB, more often than not, by the time the AIB reaches there, I mean, it's like a forensic team that goes there with who are trained to carry out an accident investigation, and they are looking for telltale marks, clues, etc. But it is already trampled. The scene is already trampled with,
Mm.
and rightfully so, trampled with safety equipment, firefighters, etc. So a lot of things are out of place. So in a case like that, in preliminary photographs, preliminary video that is available are of great help. And thereafter, today, air accident investigation has become fairly simple. However, yeah, a lot of the accident investigators' headache is taken away by the fact that there is a black box, so-called black box. The FDR is available, the cockpit voice recorder is available. So that takes out a lot of guesswork. Yesteryears, it was not like that. A MiG-21 crash or any other crash in which the pilot didn't survive, you had to do a lot of work that was involved to get to the bottom of the crash. That is number one. And it starts when the inquiry starts, it starts with first ruling out the obvious angles. The number one of that is sabotage. So
Yeah.
first thing that is ruled out is sabotage. So on that, a lot of work goes on, Zafar bhai, believe you me. In this case also, to rule out there was no sabotage, in my opinion, will take a while. And that while could be till we get the complete recording of CVR, the complete recording of TR. Sabotage cannot be ruled out. It is not
Yeah.
ruled out. I mean, it is in our Bible, in our accident investigation Bible. So you rule out all the possibilities, and then you come to um, you deduce from available information as to what has gone wrong. So it takes a
You
while.
know, yeah.
Preliminary report, like it came out in the Dreamliner, preliminary report should be out in about a week, 10 days at the most, because being a high profile crash, not beyond 10 days. We will come to know in what direction the inquiry is heading towards.
Yeah, that's a very important point. The point of sabotage that cannot be ruled out. We're talking about bad weather, about non-availability, or perhaps the helipad was not up to the mark. All of those things we're discussing, the pulls and pressures of an election rally, the pressures on the pilot, and uh, people trying to reach to all the places, trying to, transgress those SOPs. But the element of
मैंने
sabotage
इसे इनकी चार दिया नहीं.
which cannot be ruled out, the element of sabotage, and that is perhaps the first thing that will be on the focus, right?
Another thing is, Zafar bhai, is information that is available preliminary. That also plays a very great role. I mean, as I can see it as a trained accident investigator, what I can see is the left engine is not visible to me. Is it post crash or before that? Remains to be seen.
All of that is a matter of investigation, but what we can see is that that's the wreckage, and it's in a very mangled state. Obviously, when the plane has come down crashing, it has caught fire. Sanjay Lazar, you saw those images, extremely tragic image, the death of the deputy chief minister of Maharashtra. What is the sense that you get? We're talking about these election rallies and politicians trying to go to places which are sometimes on chopper, sometimes in small aircrafts, fixed wing aircrafts, to remote areas. Uh, this has happened early morning, so perhaps visibility was not an issue. But what is the sense that you get?
Thank you for having me, Zafar bhai. First of all, I am speaking to you from Baramati. I live in that district. I'm not too far from the airport, but I'm not going to make a rush for that because there are a lot of people. There's a lot of chaos. Number two, it's a sad day because I worked personally with Ajit Dada 15 years ago when I broke off my trade union and joined his organization. Dynamic personality, did a lot for Pune, PCMC, and Maharashtra. Great loss for everybody in this. He was somebody who gave you meetings at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the morning. He started working at those hours. If you were 2 minutes late, you lost the slot. He was like that, dashing and dynamic. The other thing is, we know so far that it was a Learjet 45. It's a very safe aircraft, albeit there have been 5 tragedies on this aircraft in the last 20 odd years, but there are more than 650 flying currently. So I would not say that it offhand that it's an aircraft issue. We have on ground heard that there was a conversation between the pilot and the ATC. Now I do not want to speculate. I'm only telling you what I've heard. So please understand, this is not the time for speculation. You have two respected
Yeah,
pilots and
absolutely.
people on your panel and who already said that there is a time and a place. The AAIB will look at it, so let's go by that. But they say that this happened about 60 seconds before he came in. He apparently said he could not see the runway. Now I do not know if that's true. Apparently the autopilot cut off and his aircraft veered to one side. Now why that happened, and it hit the shoulder rather than touch the runway. So we'll have to look at what that was about. I am, like I said, in that district and it's been bright and sunny. I don't know at that time of the early morning whether there was fog or whether there was some disruption there. We do not know. The other thing is, like Vinkmata Augustine just rightly said, that there is so much of chaos around the aircraft. Critical evidence will get lost in this time. Of course, they're trying to rescue impossible because it's a burning fireball over there. But there's also a great groundswell of support. Ajit Dada was a bigger than life leader in that area, in all of Pune, and people thronged when he arrived. He was going for an election rally. So you're right, there could have been pressures of that, but I do believe this aircraft is operated by VSR Aviation, part of the MEIL group. I do believe, out of Delhi. They're experienced, and it has a good record in terms of safety, like I think Dr. Vinod also has said. So let's not speculate too much. Let's go step by step and see. And also, I have no reason to believe that the pilots were not qualified or experienced. They're very highly qualified. So we need to respect that and see what could have gone wrong. So that's it.
Right. Sanjay ji, as you were saying that you worked with him, extremely popular leader on the ground, connected to the roots, to the grassroots level.
Yeah, he's very much a grassroots leader. He literally knew the workers he worked with. Unlike other big leaders, he sat down at tapris and places like that and listened to people. So he was very unconventional in many ways, very gruff to talk to, but he meant well. He was, he had that booming voice. If you spoke, very deep baritone booming voice. So yeah, and God forbid if you were not on time, that was the end of your case. He was always very, very punctual, very much somebody for the people. Of course, lots of controversy surrounded him in the last decade of his life, but be that as it may, he was a very efficient and ruthlessly dynamic person. And I will remember him for that. Supriya Sule is the MP in my Lok Sabha constituency. Dada's people were elected, even in this election, when there's been a BJP wave in all these municipalities, they still got elected. So that's saying a lot for the guy. And, God bless his soul. And the rest of the crew, the two crew, there was a young first officer, I understand, as well as, the PSO and the other staff accompanying him.
Right, and there are reactions coming in, condolences being expressed. Prime Minister has tweeted. We played Nitin Gadkari. Devendra Fadnavis has also put out a message of condolence if we can have that up now.
महाराष्ट्र के उप मुख्यमंत्री और जमीन से जुड़े हुए जननेता श्रीमान अजित दादा पवार, इनका एक विमान के एक्सीडेंट में बहुत ही दुखद निधन हुआ है। इसकी वार्ता आने के बाद समूचे महाराष्ट्र में बहुत ही दुख का वातावरण तैयार हुआ है। हम सभी के लिए इस प्रकार के जननेता को खोना एक अपरिमित इस प्रकार की हानि है। व्यक्तिगत मेरे लिए वो एक बहुत ही दमदार और दिलदार इस प्रकार के मित्र थे और हम दोनों ने साथ में काफी संघर्ष का काल भी देखा है और अब दृढ़ता के साथ महाराष्ट्र के विकास में जब वो योगदान दे रहे थे और एक बहुत लंबी पारी वो खेलेंगे ऐसी परिस्थिति थी, ऐसे समय उनका निकल जाना, मैं ऐसा मानता हूं कि इसके लिए हमारे पास कोई शब्द भी नहीं है और उनके परिवार पर और उनका जो बृहद परिवार है राष्ट्रवादी कांग्रेस पार्टी, उसके पदाधिकारी कार्यकर्ताओं पर ये जो दुख आया है ये सहना बहुत कठिन है। इस दुख की बेला में हम सब लोग उनके साथ में हैं। अभी जो उनका परिवार है वो जब बारामती पहुंचेगा उसके बाद उनसे चर्चा करके आगे की सारी चीज़ें ज्ञात की जाएगी। मैं उप मुख्यमंत्री एकनाथ जी शिंदे, हम सभी लोग अभी कुछ समय में बारामती जाएंगे और उसके बाद आगे की चीज़ें आप तक हम पहुंचाएंगे। सुबह मैंने आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी को और आदरणीय गृह मंत्री जी को इसकी पूरी जानकारी दी। उन्होंने भी इस घटना पर बहुत दुख व्यक्त किया है। सभी लोग एक प्रकार से शॉक में हैं और अब आगे की जो भी कार्रवाई है वो जैसे तय होगी वैसे आप लोगों को बताया जाएगा।
Right. To recap for our viewers, Ajit Pawar, NCP chief and Maharashtra's deputy chief minister, has died in a tragic plane crash today morning. The plane was flying from Mumbai to Baramati. 4 others, including pilots and an attendant, have also died in that crash. The small aircraft had taken off at around 8:10 a.m. and this crash has happened at about 8:45 a.m. Now, Pawar was to attend important public meetings which were connected to the local bodies elections that are due next month. And the wreckage, obviously we can see those pictures once again, if we can put up extremely shocking pictures, the mangled remains of the plane and ambulances rushing the injured to the nearby hospitals. The Director General of Civil Aviation has said that all 5 passengers on board have died in that crash. Now, the Pawar was the nephew of veteran politician NCP founder Sharad Pawar and is also the cousin of Lok Sabha MP Supriya Sule. So those are the remains of that aircraft. You can see the wreckage there on the ground, the smoke still billowing out, and security personnel at the spot There were ambulances also trying to move uh, all those on board towards the hospitals, but all the 5 people on board have died. You can see it's some sort of at some elevation. There are people on that ridge watching, looking down the wreckage of that aircraft. It's a fixed wing, small aircraft, and he was on way to attend a public meeting. This happened today in the morning. We are again joined by Panikar sir and uh, Sanjay Lazar. Captain Sharath Panikar, we're talking about the pulls and pressures during the election times, particularly politicians using small wing aircraft, sometimes using choppers, moving to places. Uh, it happened in the morning, and as Sanjayji was saying, it's a bright day. Visibility would not have been an issue. And earlier, Group Captain Augustine told us that one of the eyewitnesses he had seen was saying that it had already converted into a ball of fire before hitting the ground. Uh, it's all a matter of investigation. But the fact is that this incident has taken place. What are the possible lessons that can be drawn from this incident? There are many such incidents that have happened in the past as well. Many politicians have been killed in those crashes. But what could be the possible lessons that can be drawn from this? We believe that some of the politicians do, in fact, avoid taking such choppers and planes during election rallies. But those are the compulsions of politics. They have to reach to remote places to connect with the people.
Okay, a couple of points out here. I'll like to divide my response into 2 parts. First is let's look at helicopters. Okay, now everybody has to follow the flight duty time limitations that is which was brought out quite significantly during the Indigo crisis.
Yeah.
Last month itself. Now, even the pilots that are following for as
Okay, we seem to have some problem with the connection there with Panikar sir. Sanjay Ladarji, if you can throw some light on this, we've seen such crashes happening in the past. Uh, Obviously, there are some changes in the SOP that are made. We believe that when it involves, big aircraft, big aeroplanes, passengers are involved, like the Dreamliner, which was going from Gujarat, Ahmedabad to London. There are set protocols, SOPs that are laid out. What about these small fixed wing planes, the chopper that are used in election rallies, which carry just 4 or 5 people, just a handful of people? Are there SOPs and procedures laid out for them as well?
Zafar, first of all, whether you're rotary wing or fixed wing, the DGCA mandates certain SOPs, and they are almost similar whether you have 300 passengers or whether you have 3 passengers. Okay, when it comes to FDTL, etc., you have a different FDTL for rotary wing helicopters, etc., those pilots and crew, and you have a separate FDTL norm for normal aircraft that are flying, which are fixed wing aircraft like this one. Now, there's no distinction between the FDTL, you say, for a VIP aircraft and a regular plane. The pilots will both follow the same car. So there's no distinction. Sometimes in the case of prime minister or president, which I've had the opportunity of flying numerous times, if they're extremely long flights, there are dispensations sought from the DGCA in advance, additional crew taken on board and stuff like that. For these kind of flights, there is absolutely no, and we've seen in the past, we've read in the past, there have been some controversies where pilots were pushed by A VIP or B VIP or C VIP during an election rally, and some of them have refused, citing conditions of fatigue, conditions of. So there, even pilots are very cognizant of the FDTL regulations. Crew are cognizant. In interests of safety of the VIP and the passengers, they maintain that. VSR Aviation, like you've already said on your show, your guests have said, was a very prominent company, and the Learjet as well, that was involved here, though it's had 5 accidents across the world during its last 20 years, I still believe it's a very reliable aircraft. We've got more than 650 flying currently, like I said, and this is the 5th such incident. We've had one in Mexico, we've got a couple in the US, Madrid, and South Carolina. So I don't see that it's technically it's an aircraft fault as such. Could be a technical error, could be visibility. Like I said, though it's bright and sunny here, at that time of the morning, I don't know what it was. This was early hours of the morning, whether there was smoke or whether somebody has reported on your show that the aircraft turned into a ball of fire before it landed. Now, I do not know about that, but I do know that there was a conversation between the pilot and the ATC. Now, when we get that transcript, we will know, exactly what it is and what went wrong. Right now, it would be incorrect to speculate, but I'll tell you, by and large, the AI 171 and the Indigo crisis have brought home how important FDTL is, how important it is to maintain, low fatigue-induced operations amongst pilots and cabin crew. It's very interesting and very important that this happens at a time when we're reading reports yesterday that airlines are now pressuring the DGCA to go back on the car that was implemented in November. And I think it's very significant today that we've had an air crash. I think everybody needs to be, more cognizant of flight safety, fatigue, and aviation risks all over. It's also the first day of Wings 2026, which is, the government's huge air show in Hyderabad. So a pall of gloom in the aviation industry today. I can say that.
Absolutely. And when you see that wreckage, it's heartbreaking. It just happens in a few seconds. The crash happens and it's all over. It's on the ground, this wreckage, and this smoke billowing out. It's caught fire. It's really heartbreaking. Whenever any crash happens and we see those images, it's really those are very scary and very worrying and heartbreaking images always. But also we've been getting reactions. Eknath Shinde has also spoken. Let's hear what he had to say before we proceed on further.
अजित पवार जी का निधन हो गया। बहुत ही आज महाराष्ट्र के लिए एक काला दिन कहूँ, एक दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण घटना कहूँ, एक दुखद घटना कहूँ। ऐसी घटना जो हर एक के एक दिल को दुखाने वाली घटना आज महाराष्ट्र में घटी है। हमारे सहयोगी अजीत दादा पवार जी का प्लेन एक्सीडेंट में दुर्दैवी मृत्यु हुई है। ये हमारे लिए बहुत ही बेहद दुखद है और महाराष्ट्र के लिए भी दुखद है, उनके परिवार के लिए तो बहुत ही दुखद है। और अजीत दादा एक स्पष्ट वक्ता के रूप में जाने जाते थे, एक रोक टोक बोलने वाले। देखता हूँ, करता हूँ, ऐसे शब्द उनके डिक्शनरी में नहीं थे। जो होना है वो तुरंत करते थे, जो नहीं होना है उसे साफ ना कहते थे। लेकिन वो कड़े शब्दों में कहते भी, लेकिन मन के बहुत अच्छे थे और इसका अनुभव मैंने लिया है। उनके उप मुख्यमंत्री कार्यकाल में मैंने मंत्री के रूप में काम किया। मैं मुख्यमंत्री था तभी उन्होंने उप मुख्यमंत्री के रूप में काम किया। आज देवेंद्र जी मुख्यमंत्री है, उनमें भी हम दोनों ने उप मुख्यमंत्री के रूप में काम किया है। हम टीम बनकर काम कर रहे थे, महाराष्ट्र को आगे बढ़ा रहे थे। इसमें एक हमारा टीम वर्क था और मेरा काम करने का तरीका ऐसे देर रात तक काम करता था। अजीत दादा जल्दी सुबह उठकर उनकी शुरुआत होती थी। देवेंद्र जी भी दिन भर काम करते और सुबह उन्होंने 6 बजे अपॉइंटमेंट दी हुई, ये भी इस राज्य के अधिकारियों को पता है। एक समय को बहुत ही महत्व देने वाले एक कद्दावर, बहुत ही कर्मठ नेता जो है, समय सूचकता रखने वाले नेता जो है, ये नेता हमारे में से अभी नहीं रहे और ये हमारा और महाराष्ट्र का, उनके परिवार का बहुत काफ़ी बड़ा नुकसान हुआ है। उनको कई अलग अलग विभाग जो है उन्होंने काम किया, उस पर उनको अनुभव था। हर एक विभाग की जानकारी लेके वो अपना स्टेटमेंट करते थे, अपना निर्णय लेते थे। मैं मुख्यमंत्री था तब लाडली बहन योजना या कई योजनाएं हमने तीनों ने मिलकर टीम बनकर शुरू कर दी। उसमें भी अजीत दादा ने बहुत ही योगदान दिया हुआ है। और जैसे अर्थव्यवस्था जो है हमारी महाराष्ट्र की, वो उसके बारे में भी कभी कभी बहुत ही रोक टोक मंत्रिमंडल में उन्होंने बताया भी कि हमारी परिस्थिति ऐसी है, हमें कुछ यहाँ इसमें जोड़ तोड़ करनी पड़ेगी। लेकिन जब जो चीज़ करनी ही है, जो समाज के लिए आवश्यक है, उसमें कभी भी उन्होंने हाथ पीछे नहीं खींचा। अर्थमंत्री होने के नाते उन्होंने काफ़ी योगदान दिया है। मेरे से वो राजनीति में भी अनुभवी थे और उम्र से भी मेरे बड़े थे। एक टीम हमारी थी, एक टीम का एक हिस्सा अभी नहीं रहा है और एक बड़ा भाई हमारे में से गया है, ऐसी भी हमारी भावना है। इसलिए मैं उनको बहुत दुख भरी श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित करता हूँ। उनके परिवार को इस दुख से बाहर आने की शक्ति ईश्वर प्रदान करे, ऐसे ईश्वर से प्रार्थना करता हूँ।
सर, आठ बार उप मुख्यमंत्री रह चुके हैं। आपके कुछ दिन पहले उनके साथ
महाराष्ट्र के साथ साथ आपके भावुक हो चुके, आपके आंखों में भी नम जैसे आंसू
नहीं, कैसे वो उनका स्वभाव ऐसे था। वैसे बाहर से सबको लगता था बहुत ही कड़क है और रुष्ट है, लेकिन दिल से बहुत काफी वो नम्र थे और निर्मल थे। ये मैंने कई बार देखा है, अनुभव भी किया है। इसलिए ये एक महाराष्ट्र का एक बहुत बड़ा नुकसान उनके जाने से जो भर नहीं आ पाएगा, ये वो।
आठ बार मुख्यमंत्री
पूरे इस तरह के हादसे।
हाँ बिल्कुल, इसकी जो दुर्घटना हुई है इसकी जांच जरूर होगी, क्योंकि ऐसी दुर्घटना पुनरावृत्ति ना हो, दोबारा ना हो, इसलिए जरूर इसकी जांच होनी चाहिए और होगी।
आठ बार उप मुख्यमंत्री,
बहुत सारी यादें थी आपके मंत्रिमंडल में भी, उप मुख्यमंत्री थे, आज भी जो है
मैंने
we are also joined at this point by Captain Sanjay Gupta. Welcome to Mojo Story, sir. You saw those visuals, extremely shocking and tragic wreckage you can see on that screen. We're discussing about this incident for some time now, what could have possibly happened. It's just a matter of investigation. But what are your first thoughts, sir?
Good morning to you and good morning to all the viewers. I also was taken by surprise. First of all, condolences to the departed souls. And it is really unfortunate. I'm also just got onto the television to see as to what's happening. Some of the reports which I see is they are talking of low visibility. So I'm of the opinion that the pilot should have diverted to an airfield with a instrument landing system. These are my initial thoughts.
Yes, but it happened very close to the airport. It was a fixed wing aircraft, not a chopper. So it had necessarily got to go to that place where a proper landing was to have. It needed a proper landing, but that has not happened. But it was very close to that place. It seemed that's what we told.
This is where the pilot's capability and decision making comes in. One has to be absolutely clear. If you can't see the runway at a certain height, which is the minima, one has to divert or wait in a holding pattern. So this is again very, very initial what I hear from the other channels of television that I see, and yours as well, that I am purely speculating on the information available as of now. Its main is the visibility is what I hear. And the pilot should have either held over the airfield till the visibility improves, or move to an airfield which has got good visibility. These are my personal uh, suggestions.
Yeah, we exactly don't know what had happened, but one of our guests told us that he'd heard one of the eyewitnesses on a TV channel say that the aircraft had already converted into a ball of fire before hitting the ground. It didn't catch fire after hitting the ground, it already caught fire while it was in the air. So that could possibly suggest some sort of an engine problem, some electric problem that led to this crash.
For me to understand, very close to the ground, if and he's still in the
Who are
air.
you asking this to?
Sanjay Gupta sir, I'll come to you, Panika sir, in a bit. Yes, sir.
Okay. So to understand, aircraft getting into a ball of fire very close to the ground, it doesn't have any logic. So
Right.
if I put one and one together, it looks to me like a visibility issue which the pilot wanted to land, and something happened. He couldn't touch at the correct point, or something like that happened. This is again purely speculation, looking at the reports available on other channels and your channel.
Right. Besides the wreckage, we are now seeing pictures of grief, people really moving towards Baramati, the place. Uh, his supporters, his family members, uh, all of them colleagues. You can see on those visuals, people really making their way inside, but really uh, sad and in complete grief. That is Rohit Pawar, Sharad Pawar's son. You can see him moving in. Obviously, it's a great loss for the family and for the state, for his supporters. Completely in tears and in absolute grief. This is a shocking incident that has taken place, and messages of condolence have also come in from people cutting across political lines. In fact, Prime Minister uh, has also extended his message of condolence. He described Pawar's untimely death as shocking and saddening. He said that Shri Ajit Pawarji was a leader of the people, having a strong grassroots level connect. He was widely respected as a hard-working personality at the forefront of serving the people of Maharashtra. His understanding of administrative matters and passion for empowering the poor and downtrodden were also noteworthy. His untimely demise is very shocking and saddening. Condolences to his family and countless admirers. Om Shanti. Union Home Minister Amit Shah has also learned to have left for Pune after this information. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has said that he's deeply shocked and pained. Absolutely shocking news. Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra has died in that tragic uh, air crash. Now, this uh, aircraft had taken off about 8:15 a.m. and the crash happened at around 8:45 a.m. So, in a matter of half an hour, this crash has taken place, and now the investigation have already started. Panika sir, you wanted to come in here. We were discussing about the possibility. Of course, it's a matter of investigation. The first response is obviously to move the people who are in that aircraft towards the hospital. That's why there were ambulances there. They were trying to douse the flame. That's the first reaction. But after the dust settles, then perhaps a proper investigation will be started.
There is a certain procedure that is followed in all these cases. Invariably, the first responders on the case is more than likely to be the local police. And the police responsibility at that point in time is to secure that area. That is, they keep that entire area of the crash, which might be, let's say a rough figure of about 100 meters by 100 meters, secure that entire area so that all the evidence is preserved and all the people that are coming there are not trampling over pieces of evidence or taking them away or otherwise creating damage to whatever is the crash site. So the first responsibility of, I would imagine, the local police is to secure the area of the crash. And once the area has been cordoned off, and thereafterwards photographs are taken, identities are made, places are marked, and the entire preliminary procedure would be completely ready for the first investigators to come onto the site. Now, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau is charged with the primary responsibility, and they would be coming onto the crash site at the earliest. And they would start off with getting all the evidences, where all have the pieces been found, what all has happened, what is the state of the wreckage, etc., what was the direction of approach. And the primary thing that they would be looking for would be the black box. And once they have found the black box will give most of the answers as to what happened on board and what happened prior to the crash itself. And this would possibly either rule out a fire which is, or an explosion that has happened before impact. It would tell you everything that happened as far as the systems are concerned, the state of those systems, the health of those systems, the functioning of those systems, and this would help them to reconstruct as to exactly what happened. So the preliminary report, which the Aircraft Accident Investigation Board will put out, will give us all these immediate inputs.
Right, and DGCA probe will actually make it clear what happened, but there are some reports that it could possibly be because of low visibility. Sanjay Lazar, what are you getting to hear about it? What we can see, initially when we saw that wreckage, it was completely devastating that everything was flattened, and then these sort of visuals started coming in. But the basic initial visuals gave a sense that it must have been a fatal accident. Nobody would have survived, and that's exactly what was finally confirmed later on.
Yes, Zafar Bhai, interesting. Captain Sanjay Gupta did say could be a visibility issue. There was some talk which I heard from the ground that there was a conversation between the pilot and the ATC that he could not see the runway. Now I don't know how far that is true or whether that's just plain speculation, as happens in these circumstances, which I would not like to further the cause of. But that was what was said. Like I said, it seems a bright and clear day where I am, which is not too far from this airport. So we'd have to wait and see. The other thing is, I was just reading up on the crew. Captain Sumit Kapoor has been a commander with them for 5 years from VSR, and Shambhavi Pathak was also an instructor, though a very young first officer. She was an instructor at the Madhya Pradesh Flying School as well for a while. So not that they were inexperienced or completely green. They may not have been as experienced as the two pilots on our show today, but I just hope and pray that their family gets strength. The DGCA investigators, like Captain Panikar said, will collect the evidence, collect the black box, and then AIB will look into this and go in greater detail. But we've heard the Chief Minister and the Deputy Chief Minister speak on your show, and very sad day for all of us in Maharashtra, in Pune, and in this district. I mean, Baramati district. Very, very sad day. Ajit Dada was like I said, ruthless, powerful, very efficient leader, and a lot of people misunderstood the guy, but he always demanded and got action. He did stuff. So, may his soul rest in peace. That's about all I can say.
Yes, and now there are more details coming in that Ajit Pawar's close aide, Vipin Jadhav, personal security officer Pinky Mali, pilot Captain Sumit Kapoor, and co-pilot Shambhavi Pathak were on board during the plane crash. Those are the names now. You can see on the screen Captain Shambhavi Pathak. She was on that flight. I'll again repeat the names. Ajit Pawar's close aide, Vipin Jadhav, Personal Security Officer Pinky Mali, Pilot Captain Sumit Kapoor, and co-pilot Shambhavi Pathak were on board during the plane crash. So, in all, 5 people have died in that crash, including the Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra. Just to recap for our viewers, this crash happened around 8:45 in the morning. This is Ajit Pawar, NCP chief and Maharashtra's deputy chief minister, who died in that plane crash. The plane was flying from Mumbai to Baramati. 4 others, including pilot and Pawar security personnel, have died in the crash. The plane had taken off from Mumbai at around 8:10 a.m. and it crashed about half an hour later at around 8:45 a.m. Now, Pawar was to attend public meetings. There are reports that he had to attend 4 public meetings ahead of the local body polls that are scheduled to be held next month. You can see the visuals on that screen of the wreckage of that of that aircraft. It's completely caught fire on the ground. There was smoke that was billowing out, and initial reports suggested that uh, that that there are 5 people who were on board, and all of them were later confirmed to have died, including the deputy chief minister. Now, if I may come back to you, Sir Gupta, sir, this is not the first time. In the past also, politicians have died on choppers and on these small uh, aeroplanes, like Sanjay Gupta, like Sanjay Gandhi had died in a small aircraft crash while flying in Delhi on the 23rd of June 1980. Madhav Singh, senior Congress leader, was killed when the private plane he was traveling in crashed at Mainpuri, Uttar Pradesh. GMC Balayogi, Lok Sabha Speaker and Telugu Desam Party leader, died in a helicopter crash on 3rd March 2002 in Andhra Pradesh. YS Rajashekar Reddy, then Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, was killed in the helicopter he was traveling that crashed in Nalamada forest on September 2, 2009. So the list is long. It is not the first time that such an incident has happened. We'll talk about this, but let's first use a reaction. There are reactions coming in. Let's play another reaction. People expressing their condolence over this tragic incident and the tragic loss.
बहुत ही मात्र महाराष्ट्र नहीं, एक राजनीतिक विश्व में एक बड़ा दुखद हादसा मैं मानता हूँ। अजीत दादा को तो मैं काफ़ी सालों से जानता हूँ, साथ में हमने काम भी किया है, विपक्ष में भी किया है, साथ भी किया है। ये दादा शब्द जो है ना, जो मराठी में उसके अलग अलग अर्थ निकलते हैं। दादा कहेंगे वो होगा। दादा मतलब पूरी कमांड रखने वाला घर का आदमी, ऐसे घर के एक बड़े, जो कई बार मैंने देखा है कि पार्टी कार्यालय में वो पहले पहुंचेंगे और फिर सफाई कर्मचारी बाद में पहुंचेंगे और कार्यकर्ताओं का मिलना वो चालू करेंगे। ऐसे महाराष्ट्र के विकास पर जिसका ध्यान है, महाराष्ट्र की आम सामान्य व्यक्ति के हित के लिए सदा काम करने वाला, और जो बोलूँगा वो करूँगा, एक भी बात गलत नहीं बताएंगे, इस प्रकार का काम करने वाला एक राजनीतिक नेता जो कई युवाओं के लिए आदर्श भी था, महाराष्ट्र की राजनीति में एक महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका बजा रहे थे। ऐसे अजीत दादा का दुखद निधन, ये मैं मानता हूँ कि हम सब के लिए एक बड़ा आघात है। बस यही कहूँगा कि अजीत दादा को परमेश्वर अपने चरणों में स्थान दे और उनके परिवार के लिए हम सांत्वना देते हैं।
Right, you heard him there. Sir, we were talking about the incident that's happened in the past. Of course, his supporters, his well-wishers remember him as a man who would get the things done He was an able administrator. That's what they're saying. But we're talking about the incidents that has happened in the past and the lesson that could be learned from them.
You're speaking to whom now?
Yes, you, sir. I'm asking you. Yeah.
Okay. I'll share something very important. Of course, every aircraft crash in the country is a sad day for all of us who are avid aviators. And it's really sad that something like this has happened. But I would like to just share my 37 years of experience, out of which 24 years was in Air India, which is a full-fledged airline. And there I was lucky to be one of the training captains who had trained a lot of people. And when converting a co-pilot to a captain, there was a lot of work which went in, and at least 8 trainers would go through every pilot. Unfortunately, in the business aviation or the charter world, the checks and balances are not that serious. So when I moved later on in 2012, and it's been 13 years here, the standards were very low. I would put it this way. And whomever's, I was an examiner, and whoever's check I would do, I would, tell that particular company that, so-and-so is a little weak. He needs to pull up his socks. So my submission is that in the corporate charter world, business aviation, the standards need to go up. I'm not blaming the pilot here at all. Please, anyone shouldn't take it that way. Once it happened in a company that there was a lot of pressure to convert the co-pilot to a captain. And I mean, there were various requests, and I said he needs to really improve on a lot of issues, and that particular co-pilot was not very keen in, learning. So I said, it will be very difficult to convert him into a captain. So these kind of situations do happen, and finally I left that company because it is difficult. You see a aircraft in a hull loss is something that I would not like to see ever in my life. So the standards need to go up a little in the corporate world. Like here, I mean, again, it's pure speculation. I would like to reiterate this. Low visibility, you have to go around. It is anyone would, of course, with the pressure on the pilot to go and land because so many meetings are there, etc., etc. But the pilot should take a stand. Most of the crashes have happened, like the Andhra CM. The pilot was pressured into going further. So a lot of such cases are there. I would urge and request all who are flying not to put too much pressure on the pilots to land. Safety comes first, and such unfortunate situations happen at times. So my submission is that safety comes first. Even in this Indigo whole thing, which happened in December, the main thing which came out is safety has to be given a lot of prominence. And a hull loss is really the saddest day in the life of all the aviators. And I would pray and hope that this never happens.
Safety is paramount, and pilots should not be put under a pressure in those circumstances. That's also very important, and standards need to be lifted in the corporate world. Panikar sir, do you agree, or do you think that an incident happens, it's in the headline for some days, in focus, and then life moves on, everybody tends to forget and move on till the next incident?
Zafar, like I mentioned earlier, when I was in the DGCA in Mumbai, I had 8 non-scheduled operators with me, and I was in close contact with all of them. And the general feeling, what Captain Sanjay had also brought out, is that the general levels or standards of knowledge, capability, and interest is much lesser than what is there in a scheduled operator. The scheduled operators tend to be more professional, more adhering to all the standard operating procedures and all the FTTL limitations, etc., etc. So there is a certain lacunae in that area, but whether that has a bearing on this particular accident or not is a moot point. Nobody really knows as to what has actually happened. It is premature to pass comment or to pass judgment on what may have happened in this particular case. But in general, I would stand by what Captain Sanjay Gupta has said, that the standards in our non-scheduled operators is definitely a shade or two lower than what is there in our scheduled operators. The non-scheduled operators, they are also at any stage in time, especially the younger lot, looking to get into a major carrier like Air India or Indigo or Spice or any such thing. So there is a category of pilots which are in that particular field. I do know that there are a fair number of people from the Air Force and from the services that are there as in non-scheduled operators, and I find them to be very competent and very capable. But it's the other lot that haven't been able to get into an airline or haven't been able to get into this, and are just sort of marking time, building up experience, building up hours, that tend to give us this particular impression. But in general, as far as this accident itself is concerned, it's premature to judge. It's premature to conclude that this has happened, or whether sabotage is the case, or there's a fuel issue, or there is a engine issue, or whatever. Let's just wait for a little while. The preliminary report will come out. They will tell us very clearly as to what exactly has happened. And just as a small point of interest, I have flown over this area around Baramati for nearly 8 years. But this was when I was in the Air Force. We've done a lot of low-level work out there in fighters. Visibility in that area, generally there is, at this time of the year, there is a fair amount of low-level haze which happens, which reduces the visibility considerably. But again, what was the actual visibility and what were the contentions or what were the conversations between the ATC, what was the stage of flight, what actually happened, where it happened is a moot point. So my humble request is, let's wait. The preliminary report will come out soon. If there are any videos of this incident, it will surface. And then we will be in a better picture to surmise as to what actually may have happened.
Right. In the meantime, there are messages of condolences coming in. Prime Minister Modi has described Pawar's untimely death as shocking and saddening. He's taken to Twitter and said that Shri Ajit Pawar was a leader of the people, having a strong grassroots level connect. He was widely respected as a hardworking personality at the forefront of serving the people of Maharashtra. His understanding of administrative matters and passion for empowering the poor and downtrodden were also noteworthy. His untimely demise is very shocking and saddening. Condolences to his family and countless admirers. Om Shanti. We've been playing some of those reactions. Let's also play up Piyush Goyal, Union Minister now, who's also spoken out.
आज हम सब शोक में हैं, समझ नहीं आ रहा है कैसे इतना बड़ा हादसा हुआ। हमारे घनिष्ठ मित्र थे, हमारी सरकार में अहम पद पर थे, सहयोगी थे, महाराष्ट्र के बड़े ऊंचे स्तर के नेता और हम सबके प्रिय अजीत दादा अब नहीं रहे। मैं सुनेत्रा भाभी को, सुप्रिया जी को, पार्थ को, उनके लाखों लाखों चाहने वालों को, सबको अपनी संवेदना देता हूं और ईश्वर से प्रार्थना करता हूं कि उनकी आत्मा को शांति दे और परिवारजनों को हिम्मत दें इस बड़े हादसे को सहन करने के लिए। ईश्वर के सामने हम सब झुक जाते हैं, पर ईश्वर ही सभी का ध्यान भी रखता है। मेरी ईश्वर से यही प्रार्थना है कि परिवारजनों को हिम्मत दे और अजीत दादा को शांति दे। अजीत दादा का इस दुखद हादसे पे वास्तव में हम सब महाराष्ट्र के सभी लोग शोक में हैं।
Right. All the people of Maharashtra are in grief. That was Union Minister Piyush Goyal. Umar Abdullah, Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, has also spoken out. Let's hear what he had to say.
प्लेन क्रैश और अजीत पवार जी का निधन हुआ है।
बड़े अफसोस की बात है। दिल्ली से निकलने से पहले ये खबर हमें पहुंची थी जहाज में कि बारामती में जहाज के क्रैश में अजीत पवार साहब की मृत्यु हो गई। मैं अजीत पवार साहब को कब से जानता हूं, जब मैं मुंबई में कॉलेज में पढ़ रहा था और पवार साहब के साथ रहता था। उन दिनों अजीत पवार साहब नए सियासत में शरद पवार साहब की मदद करने के लिए मैदान में उतरे हुए थे। तब से जो उनकी शुरुआत रही, हमेशा महाराष्ट्र के लोगों की उन्होंने सेवा और खिदमत करने की कोशिश की। जो लोग उन्हें जानते हैं और जिन्होंने उनका काम करने का तरीका देखा, वो ये जानते थे कि एक बहुत ही काबिल एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर के तौर पे जाने जाते थे और एक अच्छे पॉलिटिकल वर्कर। बहुत कम उम्र में उनकी मृत्यु हो गई है और मैं अपने तरफ से, अपने पिता, अपने वालिद के तरफ से पवार साहब को, सुप्रिया को, उनकी तमाम खानदान को इस मुश्किल घड़ी में हम अफसोस और ताज़ियत का इजहार करते हैं।
सर, ये लगातार जो प्लेन क्रैश हो रहे हैं, हम आए दिन देख रहे हैं, इसमें क्या कहेंगे?
अब हर एक प्लेन क्रैश का अलग अलग वजह। इस प्लेन क्रैश में क्या हुआ, अभी शायद हम में से किसी को इस पे टिप्पणी करनी नहीं चाहिए। में तहकीकात हो, इंक्वायरी हो, उसके बाद पता चलेगा क्या जहाज में खराबी थी, क्या मौसम खराब था, कोई और वजह थी, आखिर देखते हैं। लेकिन मौत है ना, किसकी मौत कहाँ लिखी हुई है, कैसे लिखी हुई है, ये आप और मैं नहीं जानते, ये सिर्फ ऊपर वाला जानता है। और अफसोस की बात यह है कि उस जहाज में जो लोग इस दुनिया को छोड़ गए, उनके लिए इतना ही वक्त मुकर्रर किया गया था।
Right. So that was Chief Minister Umar Abdullah. We're also joined by Meenu Wadia at this time. There are reports that the mortal remains were beyond recognition, and they could be only identified through personal belongings. Captain Meenu Wadia, a very tragic incident that's happened in Maharashtra. When you see those images, the wreckage of that plane on the ground, it's happened in just a few seconds. The aircraft crashed and then it caught fire. What are your first thoughts?
I can't get the mic off. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. See, what could have happened are it's a lot of speculation going on right now. We do not know the facts. Yes, the weather was not too bad. There was no fog, but the visibility was poor. That is why the aircraft went round the first time. He couldn't land. And in the second attempt, when he was coming back, whether he saw the runway, whether he didn't see the runway. See, and a lot of reports are coming out, and I do not know how, on what basis are these reports coming out. For example, we've heard that the autopilot was disconnected. We've also heard that the aircraft stick shakers came on. Now, how has anyone come to this conclusion? I do not know. But if that is true, it is possible the stick shaker will come on normally when the aircraft is stalling. if he could not see the runway properly and he has come close to the ground and the aircraft has stalled, it is possible it could have hit the ground in the manner in which it did. It is also possible that some engine may have failed, and because he declared a warning in advance also that there was some problem on the aircraft. And some people have said that they've seen the aircraft veer off to the right. So it is possible an engine could have failed. But unless we know for sure and have the evidence for that matter, I don't think it is right to keep on speculating. But let's get more data on the subject.
Right. Obviously, it's a matter of investigation. These are just initial thoughts. What could have possibly happened? One could see from those images that people are standing on that ridge and they are looking down at the wreckage. We're also told that it was the crash happened very close to the Baramati airfield, where it would have a runway, where it would have landed. It was a fixed wing aircraft, so it had to land. It was not a chopper that they just could have come down on in a field. But there was some reason that it crashed, and it happened. It had taken off at 8:15 a.m. from Mumbai, and the crash happened at 8:45 a.m. We're also talking about such incidents in the past. There are many such incidents that have happened in the past, Meenu Wadia. And every time an incident like this happens, it's in sharp focus. People talk about it, discuss it. And the question is, are there any change in the SOP or some new guidelines being put out, particularly in cases like this, where politicians move towards remote areas during election rallies? They have a compulsion of time, and also there is a lot of pressure. Are there any specific guidelines put for those sort of cases?
Yes, there have been guidelines. First of all, it should not matter as to who is on board the aircraft, whether it's a prime minister or a normal lay person traveling on the aircraft. Aircraft safety is of paramount importance, and the aircraft captain should not succumb to any pressures. Yes, I am personally aware of facts when VIPs have traveled and they've had to land at some places and they've pressurized the pilots. And normally the pilots have said, no, they will not break the rules and take chances unnecessarily. But it is possible that some people may have succumbed to pressure. In this case, in this particular case, I'm just not aware whether there was any pressure, whether there was any urgency to land. So without having evidence, I am only saying, is it possible? Yes, there have been cases in the past it is possible. Whether it's happened in this case, certainly we would not be able to say till there is evidence on the subject.
Absolutely, it's a matter of investigation. Gupta sir, if you can throw some light on how is this investigation being carried out after this incident happens, and the initial reaction is obviously to move the people to the hospital to try and find out what happened there. There are ambulances, there are police personnel, but what exactly happens after this?
It will be cordoned off, and the DGCA and the investigation board will all be reaching there. I'm sure they'll be on the way to Pune and from there to Baramati. And they'll collect the evidences and the correct data. They'll be there, and main is the black box, which has the DFDR and the CVR. So once it's available, then it will be as simple as investigating it properly.
Right. And is it a time-bound investigation that takes place, or it's sort of open-ended?
We have all seen in this Air India 171, the prelim report has to come out early. I think it is 30 days. And the final report takes time, typically almost a year. Like 171 report hasn't come out as yet. So the basics would be coming out in a month's time, and then the final report will take some time.
Right. Meenu, you want to come in here? Right.
Yes, I do, because it's a very specific question that you ask, how the investigations are taking place. Unfortunately, in India, we've had many accidents which have been much higher than the world average. The world average accident rate is 1.5 million per million departures, whereas in India, the accident rate is very high. For the simple reason that we do not have any qualified accident analysis specialists in India. All over the world, the investigation is done by very specific people who are trained in accident analysis. Now, Annexure 13 of ICAO says very clearly, the aim of an investigation is to prevent a recurrence and not to apportion blame. Unfortunately, in India, most of the times, some blame has been put on the pilots or someone else, and that's the end of the matter. You are not doing anything specific to prevent a recurrence. And that is the main problem in our country. We have tried in this country to have people trained in accident, but the DGCA has actually prevented this from happening, mainly because they want to hold on to the power and the authority. In fact, all the accidents that you can have in the past, DGCA can be blamed for some reason or the other. In fact, some accidents have been forecasted by us in writing and inform the government this will happen. They have not taken any action. The severe, for example, the mid-air collision that took place in Chakri Dadri was told to the government that this would happen. The system was not put in place and the crash happened. It is mainly the job of specialists in accident analysis that is required in India. Is unfortunately we do not have a team of accident analysis specialists.
Right. It's a very important, significant point that one should ponder upon. But in the meantime, there are messages of condolences that are coming in. Om Birla, the Speaker of Lok Sabha, has also spoken. Let's hear what he had to say.
मुझे अत्यंत दुख के साथ हमारे 6 पूर्व साथियों के निधन के बारे में सूचित करना है। श्री अजीत पवार महाराष्ट्र के बारामती संसदीय क्षेत्र से 10वीं लोकसभा के सदस्य थे। श्री पवार 6 बार महाराष्ट्र के उप मुख्यमंत्री रहे। उन्होंने महाराष्ट्र सरकार में कैबिनेट तथा राज्य मंत्री के रूप में अपनी सेवाएं दी। वे 8 कार्यकाल के लिए महाराष्ट्र विधानसभा के सदस्य भी रहे। श्री अजीत पवार जी अभी वर्तमान में महाराष्ट्र सरकार के उप मुख्यमंत्री थे। उन्होंने एक लंबे समय तक अपने सामाजिक और राजनीतिक जीवन में महाराष्ट्र और देश की सेवाएं की। उनका जीवन हमेशा जनता के लिए समर्पित रहा। श्री अजीत पवार जी का निधन आज दिनांक 28 फरवरी 2026 को एक वायुयान दुर्घटना में 66 वर्ष की आयु में महाराष्ट्र के बारामती में हुआ।
That was Speaker Om Birla. Let's take final comments from our guests. If I may start with you, Gupta sir. Now that this incident has happened and it's shocked the country, do you think that that there would be some sort of change in the protocol here on, particularly in cases of political meetings in elections when politicians have reached to far off places, remote areas to meet with the people?
Well, a lot of things will happen, of course, but slowly it gets diluted over a period of time. And it is very unfortunate. And I agree with Captain Wadia. The main work of investigation is to prevent further occurrences. And this is where the DGCA and the investigation board is lacking. And I agree with him that, there are not many qualified people in the investigation board as well. So I pray and hope, things come up properly, and I'm sure there'll be some videos available like what happened with Air India 171. And we'll be able to give better comments. This is pure speculation, which I also would not like to say anything on that. And it's really unfortunate. Any hull loss in India is a sad day for all the aviators.
Right. Sharad Panikar ji, last comments. Can you hear me, Panikar sir? We seem to be some. Yeah, you're muted from your end, sir. Can you hear us? I think there's some problem with the line there. Meenu Waria ji, last word to you before we wrap up.
Yes. It is extremely important. See, this is one crash, and every crash should open our eyes up to ensure it doesn't happen again. But unfortunately, our government, our Ministry of Civil Aviation, and the DGCA are not open to good suggestions and good. In fact, I can almost guarantee a system, if we follow, that we will have drastic reductions in the accident rates in India. But unfortunately, the DGCA does not want to listen to these advices mainly because they want to hold on to the power and the authority. If their accidents were investigated properly, I'm sure a lot of fault and fingers would be pointing at the government authorities, the airport authority, and the DGCA. I'll give you a small example very quickly. In India, we have an umpteen number of incidents. It is the incidents which are important. Incident means nothing drastic has happened. No one has lost his life and no major crash has happened. But incidents which have happened, it can be like an aircraft going down because dogs on the runway or sheep on the runway. These are incidents. Now, if these incidents are investigated correctly and properly, they can prevent accidents from happening. In India, we have an umpteen number of incidents which obviously the DGCA says nothing drastic has happened. They're brushed under the carpet and nothing happens. Whereas abroad, I know the chairman of the airport authority in Australia has been removed from service because a small incident happened where it could have led to a major accident. And after investigation, they found that the system was not correct. And therefore, the chairman of the accident of the airport authority was removed from office. So it is important that we investigate and the small incidents properly investigated.
The incident is properly investigated. That is the key. Just to recap for our viewers before we wind up, Ajit Pawar, the Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra, has died in a plane crash. This morning he was flying from Mumbai to Baramati. 4 others, including pilot and Pawar security personnel, have also died in the crash. We're once again joined by Sharad Panikar. Yes, he's there. Last word to you before we wrap up. We could not connect with you earlier.
Okay. This is a very, very unfortunate accident that has happened. I would suggest that...
Okay, again, we seem to be having some problem connecting with Sharad Panikar, but we'll keep a close track of this story and we'll keep updating you about the developments related to this story. But for now, thanks to our viewers for tuning in, and thanks to all our guests for joining us and for sharing your thoughts. Thanks so much, and thanks for watching the Mojo Story. Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.